I've recorded now from now on, so we start again. Sorry about that interruption.
I don't know if I can share. Let me see if I can share. Oh, yes, I can share. Is that visible to everyone?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. So how can we heal the climate? That's the topic, right? So, and the way I see it is that each and every one of us is a co-captain on Spaceship Earth. And we have been given a steering wheel. And we can choose to heat the climate with a steering wheel, or we can heal the climate with a steering wheel. Steering wheels always come with responsibilities. And also, steering wheel means that you have tremendous power to make a difference in this. And believe it or not, my granddaughter basically put me on the spot, and she showed me that I have the power to actually change the whole world if I wanted to. And so she said, go for it, you know, and so she's my boss. You know, she's the one who drives me now. But it wasn't always like that. Just in 2009, when I started, I'd been working on the environment for 4 years at that time. I was probably one of the most depressed environmentalists on the planet. Hold on a second. Okay, yeah. I was in this sanctuary in the Western Ghats of India, and you would think, you know, it's such a beautiful place that I would be happy there, but I was having a conversation with the owners of the sanctuary, and they happened to be a couple from New Jersey. And they had come to India and bought a coffee plantation and turned it into this sanctuary. So I was having a conversation with Pamela, and I asked Pamela, how did you make this happen? And she said, oh, I did nothing. You know, we came and we bought this coffee plantation, tore down the fences and gave it back to the animals. And the animals did everything. I said, wow, that's all you have to do is to just return nature back to animals, and that's the forest comes back. She said, actually, we had to patrol the land and make sure that no human being comes inside. And at that point, I felt really, really small, as if I don't even belong in my own home, because I was born in this forest, just 200 kilometers from where I was standing. So that made me feel like we are the only species that doesn't belong on Earth. Every other species just lives and the planet thrives. And we are the only ones that don't belong on Earth. Then during that visit to the sanctuary, I was observing an elephant break branches of trees, eat the leaves, throw the branch away. Break another branch, eat the leaves, throw the branch away. So I asked Pamela, isn't that elephant destroying your sanctuary? Don't you want to stop that? And she said, no. Wherever the elephant broke branches of trees, that's where the sunlight streams to nourish the underbrush. Wherever the elephant trampled on bushes in the forest, that's where new pathways are formed in the forest. The elephant has no choice but to belong in nature exactly as she is. So that, you know, reinforced the separation I felt from nature, because there was nothing I could find about the elephant that didn't belong in nature, or for that matter, any animal. And then a year later, my granddaughter was born. And she was born in Phoenix, Arizona, and I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area at that time. And I went to see her when she was a month old, and I held her in my arms for the first time, and she looked up at me and she smiled. And she is half Indian, 1/4 African, and 1/4 American Indian. So I saw all continents in her, as if I saw all of humanity in her. And when she smiled, it's as if humanity was looking at me saying, what do you mean I don't belong? I belong exactly as I am, and you haven't understood me. And I felt that chill go up and down my spine when I realized that. That's what she was conveying to me. And I immediately realized that this was the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. That I had to go now and look at all the science from the perspective that we belong exactly as we are. Just like the elephant belonged exactly as she is. And that I didn't understand the elephant. In the same way, I don't understand humanity. So I started looking at science from that perspective, and guess what? Everything fits. Everything fits. You can tell a story in which we belong exactly as we are. Okay? And as part of that, we are going to make a transformation. So you're in the middle of a transformation. So let me reconstruct that story for you. In systems analysis, I'm a systems engineer. They tell you that the real product of genuine systems analysis is not solutions, it is understanding. And when you understand the problem, the solution presents itself. Okay. So we have been talking about fossil fuels, and versus land use. And right now, yes, fossil fuels is causing more, it's adding more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere than land use. But they also tell you that carbon dioxide, once you put it into the atmosphere, will stay there for tens of thousands of years. Okay? 20% of it stays forever. So it's important. What we do is going to last for a long time. We need to know that. But if that's the case, then all the carbon dioxide we emitted 10,000 years ago should be impacting us today. So why do we only start counting from 1800 onwards? Should we not be counting from 10,000 years back? And when you look at 1850, you will see that land use change is the primary cause of carbon dioxide emissions. That's on the left-hand side of this graph. Okay, so I was thinking, if I now start counting from 1850 onwards and just add up all the CO2, the carbon dioxide we added to the atmosphere, actually, land use becomes second to only coal from 1850 on. But if you start counting from 10,000 years back, land use actually dwarfs everything else put together. Okay, so that gives you a different perspective on what is causing climate change. It's not just fossil fuels, it's land use and fossil fuels. And land use is primarily for animal agriculture. And I'll show you what we have been doing. So then I started looking from further back. So I start taking like a 500,000 year perspective. What were we doing? This white line here is the temperature of the Earth over the last 650,000 years. So the right-hand side shows the temperature today. And the left-hand side is the temperature that happened 650,000 years ago. And you can see it go up and down, up and down. So don't pay too much attention to wiggles and things, but know that the difference between the high and the low is about 10 degrees Celsius. So it's huge. So the Earth had been going through a lot of ice ages. And with short, warm periods between the ice ages. And during that time, she spawned us as a species. Okay? So everything started making sense to me when I started looking at it like this. She spawned us as a species, and she said, I don't want to go through all these ice ages, so I'm now going to make you get me out of this. And how did she do that? First, she gave us control of fire. So that happened 500,000 years ago. We got control of fire. And because we got control of fire, we became a powerful species. We could now create weapons and tools. And then 50,000 years ago, we got partnership with wolves. And because we had partnership with wolves, the wolves lent us their sense of smell, their sense of hearing, their sense of sight. which is much, much better than ours, that allowed us to become even more powerful as a species. That allowed us to spread out of Africa and go to every part of the globe. We did that 50,000 years ago. We spread to every part of the world. And by using fire, we were able to then survive everywhere in the world. We became like an invasive species. And then comes the current warm period, which is on the right-hand side. And I've circled it to the red circle on the right-hand side. That's the warm period. The temperature you see, it looks exactly like the warm period that happened 3 ice ages ago. But instead of going back to another ice age again, the temperature stayed flat and then even went up a bit. So what happened there? See, this looks exactly like this. So instead of going down to an ice age again, it stayed flat. What happened there? What happened there is that our ancestors heated the climate. So I say that our ancestors heated the climate starting 50,000 years ago, not just 10,000 years ago. So we have been running a marathon of heating the climate, heating the climate, heating the climate, preventing the Earth from ever going back to another ice age again. Okay? And so you see that in the carbon dioxide levels in the atmosphere. It matched what happened 3 ice ages ago until about 6,000 years ago. And then you see it take off. That is the human effect. Same with the methane. It takes off after about 5,000 years ago. That is the human effect. So our ancestors heated the climate by cutting down forests, burning them, and also raising animals for food through agriculture. So they heated the climate and prevented the Earth from going back to another ice age ever again. So right now, Jim Hansen says it will never go back to another ice age again as long as we're around. Okay? So the temperature stayed flat for 10,000 years. And then over the last 200 years, we discovered fossil fuels and we raised the temperature by another 2 degrees Celsius or 1.2 degrees Celsius. And now we are here at this decision point and we have to choose whether to continue heating the climate. And if we do, we're all going to die off. Or we can start cooling the climate, reversing climate change, and then keeping the temperature at that thermostat setting. So we become the climate harmonizing species of the planet. As soon as we admit that we're changing the climate of the planet, we are responsible for the climate of the planet as a species. So now we have to teach our children how to be a responsible climate healing species. That's what every high schooler should know when they come out of high school. That's a different education system altogether. So we are looking at a complete transformation. So I call this the greatest transformation in human history that we have to undertake today, from a climate heating species to a climate healing species. And you can do that by just fixing the land use. See, if you look at the satellite map of the world, this is NASA map from, I think, 2001. And you'll see what used to be a blue-green planet is now a blue, green, and brown planet. The desert that starts at the western edge of Africa goes all the way into India and becomes the Thar Desert, goes all the way into China and becomes the Gobi Desert. It's almost one contiguous desert. And this is where the ancient civilizations of the world were. Because forests precede civilization and deserts succeed them. That's what we have been doing as a civilization. And you can see the deserts are spreading in Australia, and spreading in North America and South America. See, in South Africa and so on. It's just spreading more and more deserts, right? Now you look at why are we doing it this? What are we doing on that land to make all these deserts happen? So I looked at the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and how we use land, and I mapped it to this map. And what it shows is that if you take all the land we're using to raise timber for our paper mills and for lumber and so on, it'll cover all of North America, all of Central America, and a little bit of South America. Okay, it's 23% of the land area of the planet. If you take all the land we're using around the world to grow biofuels and put it in one spot, it'll cover the bottom half of Africa, bottom quarter of Africa. If we take all of our cities and all of our railroads and all of our highways and roads and put it in one spot, it will cover Madagascar. It's only about 1% of the land area of the planet. So the primary reason we use land is for food. If we take all the land we are using to grow or plant foods and we put it in one spot, it will cover Australia. It's about 7% of the land area of the planet. And that is giving us 85% of the food we eat in terms of total weight. 12% of the food we eat comes from animal sources. That is milk, dairy, and eggs. I mean, dairy, eggs, and meat put together. Okay. 12% comes from animal sources. And to grow that, we are using 43% of the land area of the planet. So if you take all that land and put it in one spot, it will cover all of Europe, most of Asia, and a little bit of Africa. 43% of the land area of the planet. Because for every 1 gram of animal food that we eat, we have to feed the animal 39 grams of food. It's a 39-to-1 reduction that happens going through an animal on average. Now, the remaining 3% of the food we eat comes from the ocean, for which we are destroying the entire ocean. On land, the original forest is only 9% of the land area of the planet. So you have taken 91% of the land area of the planet and taken it for ourselves. Only 9% is left for wild animals. So they're dying off very fast. And land has 3 times as much CO2 as the atmosphere. What do I mean by that? A tree, when a tree grows, the tree is literally sucking CO2 from the atmosphere. It's like a vacuum cleaner. That through photosynthesis, it turns that carbon dioxide into hydrocarbons and becomes cellulose, becomes the trunk of the tree or the bark of the tree or the leaves of the tree. So if you look at the weight of a tree, the dry weight of a tree, you have to double that to get the weight of the CO2 that it's sequestering. And so what we have done on land is that we have cut half the trees on the planet in order to grow our animal foods. So the planet used to have 5 to 6 trillion trees. Now she only has 3 trillion trees. And those 3 trillion trees are in this white zone. So the animal food area has 3 trillion trees missing, and it is only sequestering 2% of the CO2 on land. So if we take all the CO2 on land and see where it is, 98% of it is in this area. White area. Only 2% is where we are growing animal foods. So now tell me, if we all go vegan and we bring back the trees that we cut, can we not reverse climate change? Of course we can. This is not complicated. Okay? Because land has 3 times as much CO2 as the atmosphere. Of course, if you just increase the CO2 on land by 10% or 15%, you can reverse climate change. So, but that's the solution that no one wants to talk about. Now, if you take that into account, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. Okay, so you have to take that opportunity cost of the land. So I think of opportunity cost as like a big boat behind a man who claims he's drowning. So he's standing there saying, I'm drowning, send me a helicopter to pick me up. And right behind him, there is a boat with a big ladder hanging off the boat. And he could just climb up the ladder and step on the boat, and he wouldn't need a helicopter. But he doesn't want to do that. That is the opportunity cost. So every year we are eating animals, we are saying we don't want the trees to come back. I'd rather die. I'd rather eat my hamburger than solve climate change. That's what we're doing. So if you take that into account, animal agriculture is the leading cause of climate change. Okay. And because we have only 9% of the land area of the planet is left for the wild animals, 90% of them are gone compared to what they used to be 10,000 years ago. And they're dying very, very fast. Between 1970 and 2010, 52% of them died off. That became 58% by 2012 and 68% by 2016. So we are on track to hit 100% by 2026. This is why I promised my granddaughter that we will have a vegan world by 2026, because we have to do the opposite. Now, the climate is also telling us there are 6 different tipping points that are less than 2 degrees Celsius. Tipping points meaning it's like a feedback loop that's going out of control. There are 6 of them that are going out of control, and we know that their threshold is less than 2 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. And we are already at 1.2. So we don't know whether we have tripped them or not. And the only way to know whether we have tripped them or not is to start bringing down the CO2 in the atmosphere and seeing if that reverses. So this is also telling us, go vegan as quickly as possible. Bring back the trees on that land as quickly as possible. And this is why Gus Speth said, I used to think Gus Speth was the founder of NRDC, the National Resources Defense Council in the US. He's one of the top environmentalists in the US. And he said, I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. But I'm an engineer. And as an engineer, I try to find solutions. And when Gus Speth said that, I started looking into, is selfishness, greed, and apathy fundamental to human nature? Or is it part of the game we are playing? Because I consider money to be a game. It's a game. There are rules of the game. Only the Bank of England can make money. Only the Bank of America can make money. We make up these rules, and then we say, if you print money, we'll throw you in jail. That's also another rule in the game. But it's a serious game. It's a serious game that's destroying the planet right now. Okay? But that game causes selfishness, greed, and apathy. That's what I found. Because selfishness comes from the false axiom of supremacism. Axiom is a truth that we take for granted. Supremacism says that life is a competitive game in which those who have gained an advantage may possess, enslave, and exploit animals, nature, and the disadvantage for their pursuit of happiness. This is what I call the might is right rule. And our civilization is built on this might is right rule. And why do I know that? Because there are so many of these slaughterhouse trucks going by, and people don't blink an eye. We see animals on leashes, we don't blink an eye. We think it's normal for this axiom to be true. Greed comes from the false axiom of consumerism, which is that the pursuit of happiness is best accomplished by stoking and satisfying a never-ending series of latent desires. This is what I call the greed is good rule. And this leads to the infinite consumption model. So everyone is trying to consume an infinite amount of stuff based on this model. And how can the planet survive with that if everyone's trying to consume an infinite amount of stuff? But the good news is there is not a single religion in the world that says that greed is good and might is right is the right way to organize civilization. So we are really doing the exact opposite of what our religions are teaching us. And that's why we are having big trouble. Third, apathy comes from the false axiom of global hunger, which is that the global economy will grind to a halt without a significant portion of humanity being chronically hungry. This is what I call the industrial worker rule. Because if people are not hungry, who is going to work in the slaughterhouses? Who is going to work in these menial jobs? They have to be hungry in order to work there. So we deliberately make people hungry. I said, imagine if you had a system in which food is free, where healthy food is free. You just go out and you eat healthy food whenever you want. You don't have to pay anything. If you have a system like that, just like the deer, right? The deer doesn't ask for permission before deer goes and eats the grass. The deer doesn't exchange pieces of paper with pictures of the queen on it or Prince King Charles on it in order to eat grass. So if we had a system where we had, like the deer, we get free food, free healthy food, then what can we do with our lives? What would we do? What gift would you give? That's a different civilization altogether. And that's what I call the climate healing civilization. So I won't go into details on the burning machine and the killing machine because I'm not going to talk about that. Did you want to take a picture of it? All right. So I say the climate heating civilization is based on the 5 Ds: deception, domination, death, disease, and destruction. Deception, because you have to convince people to go along with these games, even though it's based on the greed is good and might is right. That comes from deception. Okay, we play games in which deception is lauded. If you bowl deceptively, you get a lot of money for doing that. Or if you play deceptively, you get a lot of money for doing that. So we promote deception in the civilization. Domination of other beings. So we think we are the dominant species. And then death for the animals, diseases for human beings, and destruction for the planet. That's how the money game is played. Okay? That's what brings money. And to illustrate deception, I'm showing you the satellite picture of how we destroy the Amazon, how we deforest the Amazon. You can see we leave clumps of trees behind when we deforest the Amazon. Why do we do that? Because there is a convention in science that says that any 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer grid that has 10% tree cover is still classified as a forest. So we are all pretending that we did not deforest this area. There's a lack of integrity when we have deception running the system. All right. Now, so there are 4 deadly dietary deceptions that Dr. John McDougall talks about: the protein myth, the calcium myth, the omega-3 deception, and the starch deception. The protein deception, that meat is the only source of protein, or the calcium deception, the milk is the only source of calcium. Omega-3, fish is the only source of omega-3. And then finally, starch makes you fat. Don't eat starch, it will make you fat. These are deceptions. They are all designed to make us eat animal foods, because when we eat animal foods, we'll get sick. And when we get sick, they'll give you pharmaceuticals. And they make money off of us. If you're healthy and you're jumping around, without care in the world, you won't buy any of them. You won't buy too much. You won't be a consumer. You won't go get sick and buy pharmaceuticals. You won't have diseases. And that's a problem for the system. So in climate change, they have 6 deadly climate deceptions. The narrow timeline deception, which is start counting only from 1800 onwards. Don't look at what happened before. Then you can pretend it's fossil fuels and not animal agriculture. Because if you convince people it's only fossil fuels that are causing climate change, there's nothing they can do about it. They have to get in a car and go somewhere, right? But if you convince them, if they know it is because of animal agriculture, they'll change their diet. And they will then, the whole system will collapse. So they'll change their diet, they'll get healthy. The methane averaging deception is the second one. So all these deceptions are designed to reduce the role of animal agriculture and to heighten the role of fossil fuels. Third is the urban fraction deception. Fourth is the natural cycle deception. In the natural cycle deception, we tell people that the breathing contribution of animals is part of the natural cycle. Don't count it. The CO2 that comes out of the nose of an animal is not counted, but the methane is counted. So I asked them, how is it possible that the methane is not part of the natural cycle, but the CO2 is? With the nose of the cow is part of nature, but the rear end is not. So these are deceptions. There's the opportunity cost deception, which is not showing, not taking into account the fact that you could be bringing back all those trees if you stop eating animals, not counting that. And finally, the opportunity benefit deception is another one that I'm not going to talk too much about, but that's basically if we do what they want, which is to reduce fossil fuel use right away, it'll actually kill us faster because there's this benefit to burning fossil fuels. Okay. So this is our moment of choice. We have to overcome these deceptions. We have to see through this and decide that we are going to create a climate healing civilization instead of a climate heating civilization. I say that COVID-19 put us in the chrysalis phase. From a caterpillar, we went into the chrysalis. It's Mother Nature telling us, go to your room and think about what you've done. And decide whether you want to come out as a butterfly or want to stay as a caterpillar. And let's hope we all come out as butterflies, right? And Wayne Chung said, tell your truth and tell that truth without offending people, because this is a systems issue. People are just playing roles in a system. Some people happen to be doing that role, and therefore they seem to be causing more problems, but they're really playing a role. They're all stuck in a role in the game. And finally know that there is no gain without sacrifice. So we have to sacrifice something. We have to change. If you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to go where you're going. So you have to change what you're doing in order to get away from that. There's an old Tamil saying, it's possible to wake up someone who's sleeping, but it's impossible to wake up anyone who's pretending to be asleep. So I only focus on those who are sleeping and who want to be woken up. I don't talk to anyone who's pretending to be asleep. And Buckminster Fuller said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, you have to build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So the new model has to be built on the correct axioms. What are the correct axioms? First of all, it's going from the 5 Ds to the 5 Hs. Like say, deception to honesty, from domination to humility, from death to health, from disease to happiness, from destruction to harmony. And we can create a game like that, where we are, because in fact, that's engineering. Engineering is all about the 5 H's on the right. Whenever I build a product, I have to be honest about things. I cannot say I pretend that's not happening. It'll come back to bite me if I do that. And I have to know that nature is the boss. So I have to have humility. If something is wrong, I have to accept it. I made a mistake and fix it. And finally, I have to make sure that the team is healthy, happy, and that we are all together as one team. So anyway, it's based on the correct axiom, selflessness instead of selfishness. This is the true axiom of inner peace. The pursuit of happiness is best accomplished by seeking it within ourselves. So this is what I call the self-mastery rule or yoga rule or the finite consumption model. From greed to generosity. This is the true axiom of unity. And generosity meaning we give more to life than we take from life. That's what we have to do to thrive on the planet. Okay? How do you do that? We'll treat all life as one family, where we each bring our unique skills to give all we can, receive all we need, and become all we are. So we have to routinely give more than we take from the planet. That's what Shelley Ostrov calls the vitality code of life. Finally, activism, true axiom of food healers, which is that free access to healthy, whole food, plant-based, universal vegan meals should be a basic human right. You should be able to look on your phone and see, okay, I want to go to this place and eat my free meal. I want to go to this place and eat my free meal. And why is it free? Because the community is giving it to you. So you choose which free meal you want to eat. And they all have to be healthy meals. So whole food, plant-based, vegan meals, be basic human right. If you want to eat something that's fancy, then you have to pay for it. That's what I see the food system of the future to be. And that's how you transform systems, actually. Systems transform by first showing that that we have the power to change the system as human beings, because we are the ones who are going along with the current system and we can choose not to. And secondly, we can change the foundational axioms. That's the most important way to leverage, to transform a system, changing the axioms. And then the goal of the system. Currently, the goal of our system is to grab as much as we can, each one of us. We're grabbing as much as we can for ourselves. In the climate healing civilization, the goal of the system is to heal the climate. So we have a goal. And so we have formed the Million Vegan Grandmothers, because we estimate there are at least 100 million vegans on the planet today. And so which means there are at least 1 million vegan grandmothers. And I think the Million Vegan Grandmothers should step forward and take over the planet. I really think so. Take over the planet and say, enough with this fighting, enough of all this, and we are going to feed everybody healthy food. If that happens, I assure you the system will transform. Okay. So, and I wrote a book called The Pinky Promise about my granddaughter and how she helped me see these things. And she helped me see all these things by the time she turned 6. So I see her as my greatest teacher. And all I had to do was to just listen to her. and treat her as if she was my teacher. Because I realized that we have been listening to our elders. And if we keep listening to our elders, we're going to continue heating the climate. Because that's what our elders know. They've been heating the climate forever. So to heal the climate, I said I have to listen to my granddaughter. And she was just born at that time. And by allowing her to be my teacher, I could decondition myself from climate heating to a climate healing person. Okay? And so she took me to see a movie called Cinderella when she was 4 years old. And at first I thought I would be bored watching Cinderella. But within 10 minutes, I realized the movie was for me, because Cinderella said, have courage, be kind, and all will be well. That, in a nutshell, is how you heal the climate. Because you have to have courage to be kind when everyone is cruel around you. But if you're kind, if everyone is kind to all life, all will be well. We can instantly become a healing species. Okay? And just because it is what is done doesn't mean it's what should be done. It's the second principle. Just because we have been doing something doesn't mean you have to continue doing it. So if appeal to culture no longer works with me, So this is how we have been doing it. Well, we used to heat. So why do you want to continue doing that? The third is imagine the world as it should be and act for it, not the world as it is. What kind of world do you want? Do you want a world in which all animals are thriving? People are thriving? Then we have to work for it. So with that, I'm going to stop and let's just have a discussion.
Well, thank you very much. That was fascinating. I love the sort of philosophical approach you took, which I didn't quite expect at all.
Okay.
Yeah, you raised a lot of interesting issues there.
Thank you.
One question that arose for me, what you touched on it, but you didn't expand. You said there were benefits to burning fossil fuels, and I wondered what they were.
The benefits of burning fossil fuels. There is when we burn fossil fuels, we emit carbon dioxide. Okay? And that's a heating gas. And that, if you don't reforest the planet, that will stay for thousands of years. But if you start reforesting the planet, it will come down in about 30, 40 years. Okay, it will come down. But when we burn fossil fuels, you also emit sulfur dioxide, which is a cooling gas. And it only stays in the atmosphere for a few weeks. Then it comes down. So you have to keep burning fossil fuels to replenish that. Otherwise, that cooling mass will go away. And if that cooling mass goes away, the planet will heat up very quickly by another 30%, by about 1/3. So that's too much, So this is why there is that benefit to burning fossil fuels. So we have to be careful about how we reduce the fossil fuel consumption. But there is nothing that does not improve when we stop the killing machine. There's nothing that does not improve.
I think I might have read that somewhere. Mike Berners-Lee, he mentioned that. I think that you shouldn't reduce fossil fuels too quickly.
Right.
But I couldn't quite remember the reason. So you're for reducing fossil fuels, but not before
gradually.
addressing livestock farming. Yeah, livestock farming as the main goal. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you reduce fossil fuels, it's basically you turn off the killing machine as quickly as possible and then start bringing back the forests. As that forest sequester the CO2, then you can reduce the fossil fuels.
Yeah.
Okay, you can reduce them proportional to how fast you are able to bring back the forests.
Okay. Let me see. Joanne has said something. I'm trying to read it. The difficult question
Deborah,
is
I put a question in the chat, Deborah. I don't know if you can see it.
Right, hold on.
Do you want me to say it? I can say
yes, I did read it at the time. Yes, yeah. Go on then.
Oh, moneyless society. Yes.
Oh yeah, you've seen it. Okay, fine. What's your reaction to that, please?
See, I'm all for moneyless society, but I also know as an engineer, we need to measure certain things. So money could be a way to measure our impact on the planet, something like that. Definitely basic necessities like food, healthy food, comfortable shelter, and clothing, comfortable clothing have to be free. So everyone should have comfortable shelter, comfortable clothing, and healthy food for free. Then the rest, you have to figure out, okay, if we make everything free, then how much impact are we having on the planet? Are we measuring that? So there has to be some measurement done about our impact on the planet. And that could be something that we control also through money, the money system. So money is a way to decide how we want to put our, where we want to put our time and where we want to put our resources.
Can't we work it out without money? After all, money is the root of all evil, isn't it?
The money architecture is the root of all evil. So I call it, not the money is the root of it, the money architecture. The way in which we create money today is the root of all evil.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, but there are other ways to create money. The other ways to create money that could work as a way to measure our impact on the planet. Okay, so that's what I mean by that. So if we go, and of course, if we all adhere to the three new axioms, the axiom of unity, the axiom of inner peace, you won't need to measure anything, right? And the axiom of food healers, we really won't have to measure anything because everyone will feel much happier just serving. You will discover that happiness in serving other life forms.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Joanne says, on the same theme, how are we going to get there, really? That's the thing, isn't it?
It's the how. So we know what to do. We know when to do it by, and we know who needs to do it, and we know why we have to do it. And so the only question that we haven't answered is how. Right? How do we do it? And I say that it's like bursting a dam. So you're bursting a dam. It's a dam of denial that was built over 10,000 years. Right? So you're punching holes in the dam, and the water is gushing out slowly, and it's going to grow now. And now you have to build a channel for the water to go as well. You can't just burst the dam and it'll come and break all our homes, right? So you have to create the new system, is what I mean. You have to think of the new system. You have to figure out how we are going to deal with each other in the new system. What kind of governance systems do we want, etc. So there is a lot of creative work to be done as the dam is bursting. Okay. So we have to do both. We have to punch holes in the dam and work on the creative side of how do we organize ourselves? How do we make decisions in the new model? And it's I say there are lots of people working on this now. That's the beauty of it. Lots of people are coming up with different ways of doing it. Okay? And so we can get to choose and pick which,
It's a grassroots thing.
It's a very grassroots thing, right?
Yeah, it's the people coming up because the people in control are letting us down, aren't they?
Well, see, people in control generally are letting us down, but there are some people in control who suddenly step up and say, I'm going to do the right thing. See, that's what's going on. See, look at Mayor Adams of New York.
Oh,
right? So he suddenly said, okay, I'm just going to make default vegan food in the hospitals. And so when someone does something like that, when he has so much power, when he does that, instantly half of people in New York hospitals are eating vegan food. That's a big difference he made, right? So I say that there is a role for them as well. As more and more of us go vegan, and as we grow a grassroots movement, eventually they will start doing things too to accelerate the movement. So that's how the dam bursts faster.
There are lots of different types of grassroots movements now, like Extinction Rebellion, Animal Rising, your own movement. Well, so many. Do you see that problematic, that there's all different types?
No,
or do you think
I
it's
don't see that as problematic.
No.
I see everything is, Steve Jobs said that. He said, it may not make sense when it's happening, but when you look back, you will see how much sense it made. Right? So I think Goethe also said that, he said, you can make sense of the past, but in the present, you may not make sense of what's going on.
So you're hopeful then, you are hopeful for a vegan world, or almost vegan world by 2026.
I have seen things happen exponentially fast. Exponentially fast. When I was working on the internet in 1995, there was an article in Newsweek saying, who's going to read things on the internet? Who's going to buy stuff off the internet? It's going nowhere. It's a complete waste of time. And by 2003, I overheard someone say, I cannot live without the internet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
And in 2005, the California Supreme Court struck down gay marriage. And the city of San Francisco was the first city to legalize gay marriage, and that got struck down by the California Supreme Court in 2005. And people thought the most liberal state has struck it down, it's going nowhere. And in 2015, it was the law of the land. And no one was arguing about it anymore, It's like it's become normal, right? So I'm saying social transformations also happen extremely fast.
Yeah.
And it's happening faster and faster and faster. And I say animal liberation is like that.
Perhaps we can put a hope in the new younger generations coming up, because they've grown up in a different world. They're more aware of the atrocities that go on in farming, etc. It can't be hidden from them now because it's out there on social media, whereas it was hidden from my generation growing up. And I think that will help that speed up quickly.
But it's also the impact on the environment that's motivating the younger generation, because the University of Cambridge students have voted to have all of their cafeterias and all of their canteens to be completely vegan. That's what they voted for. 72 to 28, that's the vote.
Yeah.
And mainly because of the environment.
Yeah, two things together, yeah.
Yeah, mainly because of the environment.
Yeah.
So, because the environment gives a timeline.
Oh, absolutely.
You could say, well, animal cruelty, it's been going on for so long. So what's the hurry, right, to change it? But the environment is saying, Mother Nature is saying, if you don't do it by this time, I'm going to kill you too. So that's a bigger motivator, right? So,
Angela's unfortunately has lost her connection. So I'm going to ask one of her questions, if I may. So by profession, I'm an educator. Do you think that children should learn about veganism at school? If so, why? And what do you think may be some good approaches?
Absolutely, they should learn about veganism at school. I really think that, and we need to get the parents involved as well. Get the parents and the children together, and let's talk about it. We see, ultimately, to solve problems, we have to put everything on the table. We cannot say something cannot be talked about, then that's where the problem is.
What's the approach, though? Is it looking at the animal cruelty side first? How do you think we approach the...
I think you have to start with the environment, show the statistics, show how dire it is, how we have to make major changes now, and then say, okay, let's look at this. Okay, I showed you those maps, right? Just look at this. And that's telling us going vegan is going to be a big help. Now let's look at, is that in alignment with who we are? And then, bring that in. I think that will work best, if you ask me.
Yes. Another question she's got is, you're an amazing advocate for vegan living. What advice would you give to aspiring advocates?
Oh, I hope.
I think we've lost.
I
think we might have lost a connection.
Sometimes it freezes and comes back. Oh dear.
It's such a shame that we've lost Angela completely. Oh, looks like we have. Apologies, everyone.
Maybe, should we wait a moment? Because
Yes, definitely. Well,
might need to
hopefully
come back
he'll
in.
pop back.
Yeah, I'm surprised why I think,
Oh, I think he's coming back.
yeah, I'm surprised Angela hasn't got back.
Answer
Hello,
did you?
Dr. Rao. Sorry, we lost you.
Yes.
Did you hear my question, my second question?
Yes. How
Advice for aspiring advocates.
Okay, first advice, that Wayne Shun's advice is the best. Tell the truth. Tell your truth. Tell your truth without blaming anyone. I mean, if you want to blame anything, blame the system.
Yeah.
Okay. And third thing he said was no sacrifice, no gain. So you have to put yourself out. You have to speak up. And only then will you make a difference. Okay? So,
Yes. Thank you. There's another sort of longer question that she has, but you may have answered it a bit, but I'll just read it out. There are many experts and commentators who try to persuade us that veganism will not help and will potentially cause more harm than good to the environment. We hear a lot in the media, the extras, the benefits of regenerative animal agriculture,
yes.
the greenwashing, isn't it? And points the finger at vegans creating demand for almonds, avocados, and soya. How do you deal with these obstacles in the way of creating a largely vegan world by 2026?
Yeah, there is a whole book that's coming out, and I would like to pitch that book. It's edited by Hope Bohanek. So she edited the book, and it's called The Humane Hoax.
Oh, yes. Deborah's posted about that recently, haven't you?
Yeah, The Humane Hoax. And I have a chapter in the book called The Ethical Vegetarian Myth. And Jared Bishop is also doing it, and he's done a whole, I think almost a book length write-up on regenerative agriculture, animal agriculture, and why it doesn't work. Okay, because I mean, think about it. It's the 39-to-1 does not go away, no matter how you do it, right? So there is 39 grams of food you have to feed an animal to get 1 gram of animal food out of the animal. That's on the average. That includes eggs, dairy, and meat put together. Okay? So eggs are a little less, dairy is probably around there, but then meat is probably higher. So that's how it balances out. It's 39-to-1. So when you do regenerative animal agriculture, you are saying, I don't want to feed the animals soy and corn. I want them to eat the grass. Now the 39 becomes larger. So because they have to eat more grass. This is why they're being fed soy and corn. And to do that, you need more land. So when you say, I want more land, even if you allow other plants to come back on that land. See, we created grazing land by chopping down forests. There used to be lots of other plants on that land and trees. We chopped it all down and turned that into grazing land. And then when the other bushes come back, the other plants come back, if you say, I'm going to let that grow, it'll become a forest again. Then what do you have to do? You have to chop it again. Because the other animals will show up if there is a forest. Right? And then the other animals are going to come and eat our cows. So there are all these other complications that come up when you do regenerative animal agriculture. And so net effect is that you will need more land to grow the same amount of meat. And if you need more land to grow the same amount of meat, where is that land coming from? It's coming from the Amazon. So would you rather have regenerative animal agriculture land or the Amazon? What would you like? I'm choosing the Amazon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, it's a deception. It's a deception. You always have to look at whatever the industry is saying with the huge dollop of salt. Never trust industry words without checking it, double checking it, and most likely it's flawed.
And it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because all this sort of false narrative keeps people stuck. They won't change because they say, one minute someone's saying this, someone's saying that, so they just stay where they are. And we can't stay where we are. We need to make drastic changes. So it's really, 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 really challenging.
It's not, I mean, to me, it's not frustrating. It's just that they're clinging to the last strands before they give up, you know. They're going to have to give up sooner or later because they're clinging.
So you are full of hope. Yeah.
I have faith.
That's what we need. Yeah.
See, I say hope comes from a position of fear and faith comes from a position of love.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have faith that we are part of something much, much larger and it is going to turn. And my job is to do my bit. Put my shoulder.
You've spoken in a previous interview that I've seen as well. You're talking about the interfaith and how you're going down the spiritual side and the faith, because as you say, none of us actually actively want to do harm, especially to animals. But in reality, you know, it's if we're still consuming animals, exploiting them, then we are. How is that progressing? So I know it was in the COP17, wasn't it, that there was an interfaith declaration with Desmond Tutu as well. How have things progressed since then? Well,
it's slow because the faith community is also part of the same system of normalized violence.
Yeah.
So the same sort of deception is going on there as well. You know? So, but again, there are people of faith who have gone vegan who are now slowly, you know, we are working our way into the system.
We've got faith in the faith system, have we?
Exactly. So the Parliament of World Religions now, it's going to happen in August, has, I think, 30 odd vegan events are happening. About 30 events are happening that are vegan. And they are asking for vegan food now. It's not like we have to go and push our vegan food. They are asking for it. They're saying, can you help us get vegan food?
That's excellent.
Yes.
Yeah. And you have an event coming up this weekend, a virtual event. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So this is the 13th Convergence of the Peoples, 13th Vegan Convergence of the Peoples. So we have done this 13 times so far. This is the 13th one, and it's shaping up to be the best ever. I think everyone is shaping up to be the best ever, which means you're going in the right direction. And I'm happy about that. Basically, the theory is that when we all come together and share notes, we help each other get better at what we do. And if each one of us is able to meet our wildest dreams, we will have a vegan world.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you so much.
Do we hand it over to Angela now?
Welcome back, Angela.
Thank you very much. I'm sure my internet, you had nothing to do with, Dr. Rao.
Sorry about that.
It's usually really reliable, but tonight it just hasn't behaved.
Oh no!
Yeah. I'm not sure what's been lost in the section. I'll be really interested to look back on the recording. I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know it's really late for you there in India. It's probably past midnight now, isn't it? Probably coming up for 1 o'clock in the morning. Just very, very grateful to you for being here. It's such a privilege and an honour to host you, and just a huge thanks and sending you lots of gratitude.
And thank you for everything that you're doing.
Yes,
for humanity. And yes, and we follow you. We're following your journey closely. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for being an inspiration to us. Yeah. Thank you.
Go make a pinky promise with some little child.
Okay.
That'll keep you going, I assure you.
It's a wonderful story.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Deborah, are you still recording?
yes.
Stop.
Do you want me to stop it?
Yeah, that's okay. Thanks.